Hello everyone, welcome to Michigan Man MTG, and we're back with the top 10 rares from Final Fantasy that I think have the best chance of seeing significant standard play over the next few years. So, start with, we've got at number 10, Theat, Heart of Hydaelyn for 1 and 2 white mana. You get a legendary creature that's an Elder Wizard and is a 3/3. And when you cast a legendary spell, you get to draw a card. And I think that's really the thing that's going to make Theat the really good card in Standard for this period of time. Okay, it only triggers once a turn, but that card draw every time you play a legendary spell is significant. And if you are able to have 7 mana laying around, you can exile her and then transform her, and you get Hydaelyn the Mother Crystal. It's a legendary creature that's a god and a 4/4 with indestructible, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature you control until your next turn it gains indestructible. If that creature is legendary again, then you get to draw that card. So this is going to be in a Legends Matter deck, but I think this is going to be a card that is a lot better in the long run, I think, than people feel right now. Number 9, I've got the Darkness Crystal for 2 and 2 black mana. You get a legendary artifact. Black spells cost 1 less. And if a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile it and you gain 2 life. And then for 6 mana, you can put target creature card exile with the Darkness Crystal onto the battlefield tapped under your control with the 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. So basically you get to take whatever the best card is your opponent has or you have that has left the battlefield, and you'll then be able to go ahead and be able to play that. And I think that's good enough to see standard play. And the fact that every time you kill a creature, you get to gain 2 life and you get to exile that creature, that actually is relevant in standard. We've got so much graveyard shenanigans going on right now. Just being able to exile things, I think, is a very good reason to play the Darkness Crystal. At number 8, I've got Summon Titan for 3 and 2 green mana. You get an enchantment creature that's a Saga Giant and is a 7/7 with Reach and Trample. On Chapter 1, you get to mill 5 cards, and then on Chapter 2, you get to return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tap. So I think this is a card that will go into our landfall strategies as several copies of this. And then until end of turn on Chapter 3, another target creature you control gains Trample and gets X+X, where X is the number of lands you control. So imagine giving that to Tifa or really any creature you have on the battlefield at that point. That's probably going to be good enough for you to win the game. And I think Summon Titan, even though it's 5 mana, will fit well into that style of deck. At number 7, I've got Esper Origins for 1 and a green mana. You get a sorcery. The first thing here is you get to Surveil 2, and you get to gain 2 life. And then if the spell was cast from a graveyard, exile it, then put it onto the battlefield transformed under its owner's control with a finality counter on it. And the flashback cost is 4 mana. So the nice thing here is that you're going to be able to play this twice. It's low enough cost, so you get to Surveil, you can put some stuff in your graveyard, depending on what kind of deck you're playing. You get to gain some life, which is always helpful. And then when you transform it, you get to reveal the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, put it into your hand. So because you're going to Surveil before it's transformed, you will go ahead and get to hopefully have a permanent card on top of the library, so you get to take advantage of that. And then you get to add 2 mana on Chapter 2, and then on Chapter 3, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Trample until end of turn. So I think this is going to be a sneaky card in Standard, where you're playing this, you're playing a deck that's got a good amount of creatures in it, and you play it out of your graveyard, you transform it, and then a couple turns later, now everything's got +2/+2 and Trample, and I think that's going to be certainly good enough for Standard. At number 6, I've got Astrologian's Planar Spear for 1 and a blue mana. You get an artifact that's an equipment with Job Select, which means that you're going to create a 1/1 hero creature token when you cast this and put it on the battlefield. And an equipped creature is a wizard in addition to its other types, and has whenever you cast a non-creature spell, and whenever you draw your third card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And I think this is going to fit well into the Quarry Steel Cutter decks. I've played some games with it there, and it's been very good in those decks. And if you can give it trample somehow, this creature, I think it's going to be very, very successful. And it is going to trigger every time you play a non-creature card, and that deck has so many quick cards in it that are 1 or 2 mana that you're going to get this to a 3/3 or 4/4 probably on the first turn you're able to attack with it. Next, at number 5, I've got Sarapharen for 1, a green and a white mana. You can legendary creature that's a human citizen, and a 2/2. And the first legendary creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast, so very good ability right there. We're going to reduce the cost of all our legendary creatures and legendary spells. And I think that's really important, and I think this is going to be the key thing that is going to make a Legends deck work very well in Standard. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 2 or more other legendary creatures, you may transform Sarapharen. And I think honestly, on turn 1 you cast a 1-drop legendary creature. On turn 2 you cast a 2-drop legendary creature. Then on turn 3 you're casting Sarah, and then when you go to combat you're transforming her, and then she becomes a legendary artifact. The first legendary spell you cast again costs 2 less each turn. Then legendary creatures you control get +2/+2. So imagine playing a 1-drop and then a 2-drop, and now all of a sudden they're 3/3s or 4/4s when they go to attack on turn 3. And I think that's going to be very significant and why this deck's going to work well. All right, number 4, I've got Ultima for 3 and 2 white mana. You get a sorcery, and it's simple: destroy all artifacts and creatures, and then you end the turn. So that means no death triggers will happen. And I think this is going to be the go-to board wipe going forward, unfortunately. It's not going to exile things, but it has in essence the same effect because those death triggers won't be triggering. And because we do have so many artifacts now in Standard from this set, but also the Quarry Steel Cutters, also the Simulacrum Synthesizer deck, I think this is going to be at least a sidebar card in any white deck, and maybe main deckable in some decks as well that are not even control decks. Alright, number 3, I've got Starting Town. Okay, this card, land enters tapped unless it's your first, second, or third turn of the game. So early in the game you play this and it doesn't enter tapped. And then you can pay a life and get a mana of any color. We know that the Pain lands from the Dominaria sets from a couple years ago are going to be rotating, and Starting Town immediately becomes a card that you can use to replace them. So I think this is going to be a card that you want to get 4 copies of if you're playing Standard and Paper, because it's going to be an important card. At number 2, I've got Cecil Dark Knight for a black mana. You get a legendary creature that's a human knight with Death Touch, and it has darkness. Whenever Cecil deals combat damage, you lose that much life. Then if your life total is less than half or equal to half your starting life total, untap Cecil and transform it. And then you get Cecil Redeemed Paladin with lifelink, and as a 4/4 with Protect. Whenever Cecil attacks, other attacking creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. I think this is going to be a key piece of our mono black decks, or really any variety of aggro decks going forward, because it's not going to be hard to get yourself down to 10 life. With all the Pain lands and other things that are going on in Standard, I think you're going to be able to flip Cecil fairly easily in Standard, and you might pair this with Dark Confidant as another way to help accelerate that. So I think this is going to be a very, very good Standard card. And at number 1, I've got Tifa Lockheart for 1 and a green mana. She's a legendary human monk and a 1/2 with trample. She has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double Tifa Lockhart's power until end of turn. People are already working on this deck, and I think over the course of the next couple of weeks, if not months, we're going to have a very, very strong and solid landfall deck, whether it's mono green or whether it's some other combination of stuff. But Tifa is going to be a core piece of that. All right, those are my top 10 rares for Standard. I'll be back with a couple of additional videos for uncommons and then commons, and you can also take a look at my mythic rare list of the top 10 mythic rares I feel are going to have the most impact on Standard from the set. Thanks. I'll see you next time.